Welcome to my review of Splatterhouse 2 for the Sega Genesis. Yeah, this is definitely an underrated game that I don't really hear mentioned too much. I was first introduced to this series actually through this game. This was the first one I played. I had no idea, what the fuck Splatterhouse 1 was, or anything about it. And there wasn't a lot of information back then, so, I first rented this game. I really liked the box art, it was real gory. And, that appealed to me back then. So I rented it, and I think I ended up, renting it a few times. And I liked it so much that I ended up purchasing the game. And, it's a really good game once you get into it. Initially, the control can feel pretty floaty. And, it does take some getting used to because the character can feel sluggish. But, once you get into a rhythm with this game, it flows really smooth. And, the control feels really, really good once you get it down. But it can take a little bit of an adjustment initially. The way the character moves can be a little bit awkward to get used to. But once I got used to the game, I thought the control was great. It's just that it didn't initially feel real tight to me when I first played the game, but when I went back to it recently and beat it, it actually felt quite good. So yeah, great art style in this game, and the music is some of the best on the Genesis as well. And yeah, I really like the atmosphere of the game. I think it has one of the best atmospheres of any game on the Genesis. So it really does have a lot of strong points, and it's one of my favorite games on the system. I really like the enemy design's really cool. The boss design is really well done. I don't think there's any game on the Genesis that has, more impressive looking bosses than some of these boss fights with the amount of detail that they have. So yeah, I thought this would be a good game to cover. I have seen the first one get a lot of coverage, but I don't hear the second one mentioned too much. So yeah, I actually made a tutorial on this game with full commentary, breaking down the entire game. So I'll link that in the description so you can check that out if you're interested. But yeah, see, there's a lot of unique boss fights like this one where you can take down this chainsaw and these scissors and then actually use it as a weapon against the boss. There's a lot of unique ideas. All the bosses are really interesting, really well designed. And there's a good gameplay variety. Like here, you're being chased by this fucking octopus here, and you gotta run away from it. But then eventually, you start throwing spears at it while riding a canoe. So yeah, it really does switch up the gameplay, and keep things moving at a fast pace. Initially, the game can feel sluggish, and it's not going to feel like a fast-paced game because you're probably going to get destroyed. It's not an easy game. But there really is a rhythm and a pacing to the game once you get a feel for the game. But it does take a while to get to that point. But once you do, the game feels great to play. So yeah, after I actually, purchased this game, I actually ended up getting the first game much later on the TurboGrafx 16, and that's when I experienced that, and I fucking loved that game. So I would probably say that the first one is still my favorite in the series, but this one is very close. And it's definitely definitely debatable which one is better. I mean, I think you can make a case for either game being the best in the series. But I probably like the atmosphere a little bit more in the first one. Now, neither game is very lengthy. These games are not long. This game is only about 25 minutes long if you don't lose any continues. Of course, your first time playing, it's going to take, more than a few hours to actually learn the game and beat it. But one of my issues with the game is maybe that it could be, it could have another 4 to 8 levels, be at least twice as long, I would say. Because it's only about 25 minutes. It could be a solid hour. But I wouldn't want them to make the game longer if it was going to be filler and shit. I want quality levels, quality gameplay. So I wouldn't want them to just make a game longer just for the sake of making it lengthier. You know, a lot of games have been bad because of that, or they feel really diluted, watered down. So yeah, here in this area here, you'll see a pretty smooth flow to the movement here, where it's like non-stop. I had this section down pretty good. And you really can get into a really good flow with the game once you learn the sections. This would actually be a really good game for speedrunners because it really has a tight flow to it. Once you really, learn exactly how to move without stopping, you can pretty much just keep moving through a lot of the areas if you have really good timing. Initially, it doesn't seem like a game that has that kind of flow to it, but it does. Once you learn it, it really has a nice flow. But yeah, one issue I have with it is that, it could definitely be longer. But that was never a complaint for me because I just appreciated the game for what it was. And, the length felt good to me. But, looking at it now from, a more distant perspective, I could see how it would benefit from being maybe about twice the length. If they could maintain the same quality that the stages have. Because all the stages are pretty much really good. I mean, some are a lot better than others, a lot more enjoyable than others, but they're all like, pretty damn good. And the design of the game, as far as the art style and the music, is really some of the best for that whole time period. You really only have a basic set of moves. You have your regular kick, you have your punches, you can jump and do either a punch or a kick. And that's pretty much about it, aside from weapons that you can pick up in certain areas. And you do have a slide attack, which I almost never used. You really don't need the slide attack. It's actually hard to execute, so it's tricky to use in a lot of situations because the slide is a really long slide. And, while you're sliding, you can take damage, so unless you really know what you're doing, the slide is not going to be too useful. And I don't think I, ever really end up using the move. Almost never. One thing I like about the game is that you can pretty much publicly urinate in any area. There's no areas really where you get penalized for public urination, which I like in the game. Because I don't like when people try to fucking judge me for, for doing shit. I mean, sometimes I just like to do shit. Here you're going to be dodging some blue balls, which is kind of like real life, You try to avoid getting blue balls. Now, this is not really a great stage. This one is kind of irritating because all you really do is stay at the right edge of the screen, turn around, and punch the balls, And that's really all you do for this stage. It's pretty damn easy, and but it looks cool. The art style is great. The gameplay on that part, it's okay. There's not much to it. But they constantly mix up. Each section feels a lot different. It's constantly mixing up the gameplay. Like here, you can get a little blowjob on the side if you want. And then when you're done with that, you can grab some of these fucking spears and just throw them at the boss until it's dead. So it's a nice little variety. I do like the way they mix it up. And, there's a lot of sections where, your timing has to be really, really precise, which is cool. Because you don't have a lot of health. You can only take about 4 hits before you die on the normal setting. And then there's a Game Master mode. The only difference on that mode is that you die in 2 hits. I only beat the final stage, I think, on Game Master mode. I didn't really work on the game on that difficulty. It might be worth replaying, though, in the future. And maybe making a revised tutorial for that mode. It would be cool to beat that mode. Because it is a great game. I would definitely like to replay it again. So this is the final boss. Spoiler alert. And this was a cool final boss. With all these guts hanging out and shit. And, you punch these heads. And it's actually a hard final boss. It takes a good amount of practice to get down. It's tricky. I would say the game overall is a moderate difficulty. But, opinions will vary on that. For me, I would say currently the game is a moderate game for me. In the past it was very hard, but I was able to beat a lot of the stages when I was young. But overall, this is one of my favorite Genesis games. I think it's a fucking classic, and, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. And I think it holds up the same back then as it does now. So I would definitely highly recommend checking this game out if you haven't already. And thanks for watching.